if you grew up outside of the West, this is not even remotely unique. What's unique is America doing it, and also doing it in broad daylight, with the media basically just kind of being in alignment. This is how it always goes. All right.
If there is an image to define this trip so far, well, this is it. A surprise for sure, and such a reflection of the quirks of history. Because Ahmed al-Shara is now the Syrian president, but he was an Islamist commander, aligned to al-Qaeda, a militant who fought the Americans in Iraq, jailed by them in the notorious Abu Ghraib prison. There was no sound on the images released, and so we don't know what they said, but as an indication of what seems uncharacteristically to be Donald Trump's message here of cooperation, opportunity, looking forward, it had all that.
But you have to stay down. You have to stay down. I'm working with you.
There is a tussle on this trip.
He has to stand. Down.
To decipher what the American president is up to here. Because at face value, we're getting a fresh vision of his foreign policy worldview. And it is at odds with Trump, the disruptor. The morning meeting with Gulf Arab leaders was about investment first, but under it, geopolitical cooperation. The two go side by side here.
And I think things...
And after the opulence and business deals of day one, it was more about the diplomacy on day two. A nuclear deal with Iran, maybe, and Israel, Gaza.
In Gaza, my administration shares the hope of so many in this region for future of safety and dignity of the Palestinian people. But that cannot happen as long as Gaza's leaders take delight in raping, torturing, and murdering innocent people. Can't have it. I greatly appreciate the constructive role that the leaders in this room have played in trying to bring the...
This is why I think the Hamas goodwill is not going to get them anywhere, for the record. The goodwill demonstrated by Hamas with the hopes that, like, Trump will directly talk to them. The goodwill demonstrated by Hamas in the release of Eden Alexander was a way to sidestep Israel and to show the Trump administration that Israel was actually the one ruining the ceasefire conversations. Okay? Once again, Hamas and virtually every other Palestinian liberation group mistakes or misjudges the humanity that their colonial oppressors have. Okay? They do not care, I don't think. And I'm really worried about this, but I don't think that the Trump administration, especially with commentary such as this one, do not give me great hope that they will try to manage a way out of this conflict, because that would require undermining Israel's position, but that would also undermine America's position, because this is America's position.
Terrible conflict to an end.
That was it, though, publicly at least, on Gaza, the elephant in every gold-gilded room he went to. The farewell from the Saudi Crown Prince reflected the closeness of this relationship, the trappings of power shared. On the flight to Qatar, a few words on the meeting which defined the day.
How did you find the Syrian president?
Great. I think very good. Young, attractive guy, tough guy. You know, strong pass. Very strong pass fighter.
Does that worry you at all?
Strong pass?
Pulling it together.
Strong pass? Real fighter? Bro, he beheaded people. Trump's own Zelensky, by the way. This is Trump's Zelensky, straight up. Every admin going forward's got to have a Zelensky. This is Trump's.
And then jet escorts again, this time above the Persian Gulf. And from Air Force One, he arrived into Doha, into the hands of the royal family who want to give him a new plane. And he hasn't just brushed aside the conflicts of interest, he's doubled down here, insisting it is all fine. At the Emir's palace, a sword dance, camels, and Arabian horses to greet a motorcade led by Tesla Cybertrucks. Qatar hitting all the right buttons for the American president. But beyond all that, this leg of the trip is less about trade and about money and more about geopolitics, because Qatar has proved itself to be a country that's capable of doing delicate diplomatic deals in a way that few other countries can. On Gaza, Qatar has been the intermediary between the Americans and the Israelis on one side and Hamas on the other. The hostage negotiations have been driven from here. Hamas has a political office here. And Trump's chief negotiator, Steve Witkoff, he is here too. You have to wonder what progress on ceasefire talks are behind this hug. We don't know because it was all about the decor here.
As a construction person, I'm seeing perfect marble. This is what they call perfecto.
Then a hint on another challenge and the prospect of a Zelensky-Putin meeting this week.
I know you're very much involved in helping us in other regions, like what's happening with Russia, Ukraine, etc. And I think we're having some pretty good news coming out of there today and maybe tomorrow and maybe Friday, frankly. But we'll see about that.
The evening, as it was last night, was a state dinner for the American president and his guests. Mark Stone, Sky News, in Doha.
As Noam Chomsky says, it's terrorism when they do it. It's counterterrorism when we do it. All these events unfolding in succession make it so that even the dumbest person can understand the hypocrisy, right?
It was an air escort fit for a king. Saudi fighter jets flanking Air Force One on the president's approach into a place where he feels comfortable. If the Saudi-US relationship has had its ebbs, well, it feels now like it's flowing. Down to the tie with the carpet, there is a match between this president and the crown prince here to...
Purple carpet is significant because it's the royal color. And they even gave him the highest honor that the kingdom can offer to anyone.
Greet him. Just as he did in his last term, Donald Trump has chosen Saudi Arabia again for his first major foreign trip. Now, though, they are two leaders more confident, more powerful, more self-assured, and they see opportunities and money. This was the full Saudi welcome from a country transformed so fast, where change that took Western nations centuries has happened here in one generation.
You got a 21 gun salute and shit. Like, they got a mobile McDonald's for him in Riyadh. They brought in a mobile McDonald's truck. Bloody killers, all of them. You're with us? No, nothing I said is a joke. It sounds like a joke, but it's not.
Trump the president was here, but so too was Trump the businessman. In a gilded palace and with America's most successful CEOs with him, he must have felt quite at home. The so-called tech bros had traveled thousands of miles to be here. The richest man in the world, Elon Musk, and the man shaping AI, Sam Altman, among a long list of founders and CEOs from some of the world's biggest companies here for investment. Because symbiosis is what all this is about. It's about what America can offer Saudi Arabia, but now more than ever, it's about what the Saudis can do for America. And so the signing ceremony was the first order of the day, and the jewel in the crown, a $600 billion strategic economic partnership deal with the Saudis, including the largest defense sales agreement in history, we're told. This is, of course, a relationship that stretches back many, many decades through consecutive presidencies and one royal family.
I'm not going to say what America deserved. I'm not going to say it. But like the way that the media is presenting all of this as though like Trump is a great negotiator and he's bringing all these countries to heel. I don't know if they're wish casting or I don't know what's going on, but I do not see Israel's actions. I do not see Israel's actions in the backdrop of all of this in any way, shape, or form conciliatory to the very reasonable demands being made by Hamas. And I don't hear a lot of criticism from at least Saudi leadership about said actions. As I've told you before, MBS does not give a shit about the Palestinians. He actually sees the Palestinians as a nuisance, getting in the way of his deals that he wants to make openly with Israel.
family, but it feels now to be more important and with more opportunity than ever before. The president got the trip down memory lane as he arrived at the investment forum. Inside, the soundtrack was his, playing now in Riyadh, and with a smattering of MAGA hats. The American cabinet, the Saudi royal court, and the billionaires' front row.
You achieved a modern miracle, the Arabian way. That's a good way.
For his speech of the day.
And it's
There's something so funny about Witkoff sitting there. If you know his background, you understand the dark humor in this. Virtually all of Witkoff's, or not Witkoff, sorry, of Lutnick. I said Witkoff, I apologize. I'm actually talking about Lutnick, Howard Lutnick. If you know anything about the background of Howard Lutnick, you know that the people, if you know anything about 9/11, or specifically about Howard Nutlick, the people in that room have direct involvement with virtually every single person that he knows dying on 9/11, including his brother. But of course, ever the great deal maker, Howard actually found a way to capitalize on the death and destruction that the company that he was a part of, the company that he actually had seized control of, experienced, including his brother dying, and made a lot of money off of suing the airlines for allowing 9/11 to happen. He then took away a big chunk of the trial awards away from people in his company that needed it and the family members that needed it. A group of families whose relatives worked for Cantor Fitzgerald and died on 9/11 pressed Howard Lutnick for help ahead of the presidential trip to stop, including Saudi Arabia. Yeah, okay, good luck. Yeah, he's really doing that here. Cantor Fitzgerald was the Wall Street bank that Howard Lutnick was in charge of that lost like 700 people on 9/11. The only reason why Howard was spared was because he was taking his child to kindergarten that morning. His brother died. He then turned around. And successfully sued the airlines for their responsibility of 9/11 happening. Won hundreds of millions of dollars. And then instead of distributing those resources, those dollars evenly with the rest of the families of the victims from Cantor Fitzgerald, he pocketed large chunks of it. He distributed the award. He distributed the awards from said trial by share in the company. A real freak through and through.
Court and the billionaire.
That's a good way.
For his speech of the day.
And it's crucial for the wider world to note this great transformation has not come from Western intervention, giving you lectures on how to live and how to govern your own affairs. Instead, the birth of a modern Middle East has been brought by the people of the region themselves.
Well, that was a pretty remarkable speech, despite the tariffs and the upending of the world order that we've seen over the past few months. The message there was that America is open for business, politically, economically, ready to build bridges, put differences to one side, and work with all countries in this region, even Yemen, Syria, and Iran. A key headline was Syria. He said he's scrapping sanctions against the country, now free from Assad. It comes as the White House revealed that he is due to meet Syria's new president, once a jihadi fighting the Americans. They'll meet in the day ahead. It might confuse some people. When he's doing his speeches in America, it's all about America first. We don't really care about the rest of the world, seems to be the vibe. And then here, it was a wholly different message, I felt.
I think there's a misperception. I think the truth is that he obviously cares about peace around the world. And he spent his entire, 4 or 5 months of his administration sending his emissaries around the world to create peace deals, right?
We're strategic partners. They need us and we need them. I mean, that's just the way the ball rolls.
The evening was the state banquet. The morning will bring the diplomacy. He'll meet key Arab leaders before travelling on to Qatar, where they will surely try to outdo the spectacle today. Mark Stone, Sky News.
Yes, the mayor of Miami was there. No, that's not true. He literally took care of every single family. He took care of every single family. I don't know why he's saying that, because I know. No, he set up a 501c3 for the victims, but it is not a lie that he took the lion's share of the awards from that trial. He distributed it by, literally, he distributed it by shares, which he happened to have the most of. I don't care about your personal involvement with Howard Lutnick. Every single thing I said is correct. No, it's not Lutnick in the chat. So what he lost the most to seems reasonable? That's hilarious. Okay, dude.
In Riyadh.
The latest now on President Trump arriving in Qatar this morning, the second stop of his 4-day trip to the Middle East, where he's mixing diplomacy with business deals. Chief White House correspondent Mary Bruce traveling with the president. Good morning, Mary.
Good morning, Georgia. President Trump now on the second leg of his visit here in the Middle East, here in Doha. But before leaving Saudi Arabia early this morning, the president having an historic visit with the new president of Syria, the first by an American president in more than 2 decades. This morning, President Trump touching down in Qatar. Trump kicking off the second leg of his 3-country tour to the Middle East after visiting Saudi Arabia. Trump this morning marking a major shift in U.S. policy towards Syria, meeting new Syrian President Ahmed al-Shara alongside Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, with President Erdogan of Turkey joining by phone.
With the support of leaders in this room, and the great leaders you are, we are currently exploring normalizing relations with Syria's new government.
The face-to-face coming just hours after Trump announced he would lift sanctions on Syria, now that the Assad regime has crumbled.
I will be ordering the cessation of sanctions against Syria in order to give them a chance at greatness.
It's a move, Trump says, came at the request of the Saudi Crown Prince.
Oh, what I do for the Crown Prince.
The first major foreign trip of Trump's second term focused on strengthening business ties with the Middle East. Joining him, leaders of some of the world's most powerful companies, from IBM to Google and Uber, and of course Elon Musk. The president now touting a $600 billion investment in the U.S. from the Saudis, though details are sparse. The Saudis giving Trump the royal treatment. The Crown Prince rolling out the lavender carpet. Trump piling on the praise.
I like him a lot. I like him too much. That's why we give so much, Too much. I like you too much.
The president describing a transactional approach to foreign relations based on making deals regardless of past history. From embracing the Saudi Crown Prince years after U.S. intelligence concluded he orchestrated the murder of Washington Post journalist Jamal Khashoggi, to forging ties with Russia's Vladimir Putin.
In recent years, far too many American presidents have been afflicted with the notion that it's our job to look into the souls of foreign leaders and use U.S. policy to dispense justice for their sins.
But hanging over the visit, serious questions about Trump's own business interests. His sons, who now run the Trump Organization, have projects in the works in all 3 countries he's visiting.
Trump Tower, Jeddah.
Bro, he's not old and fulfilling his fantasies. He's just becoming a Turkish-style dictator. I don't think people understand. Everything he's doing for pure profit is people that are outside of America. If you grew up outside of America, you've already seen this. If you grew up in Latin America, if you grew up in Turkey, if you grew up in the region, if you grew up in the Middle East, if you grew up outside of the West, okay, this is not even remotely unique. What's unique is America doing it, and an American president doing it, and also doing it in broad daylight, with the media basically just kind of being in alignment. It's pretty funny. This is how it always goes. Person comes into power, uses the weight of the office to generate tremendous amounts of wealth for himself and his family and his friends, and that's it.
coming soon.
Trump now in Qatar, which he once called a funder of terrorism. But now he's poised to accept that extraordinary gift from the royal family, that $400 million luxury jet known as a flying palace, to be used as Air Force One before being transferred to his presidential library. The proposed deal raising serious questions about what it will cost American taxpayers to retrofit the jet to modify its security, and whether the gift violates the Constitution's ban on gifts from foreign heads of state. Trump overnight defending that proposed gift, saying the current Air Force One is less than impressive.
Some people say, oh, you shouldn't accept gifts for the country. My attitude is, why wouldn't I accept the gift?
But even members of his own party aren't sold.
I also think that the plane poses significant espionage and surveillance problems. So we'll see how this issue plays out. But I certainly have concerns.
And the president is kicking off his time here in Doha with a formal state visit, including a lavish state dinner tonight. He's also expected to speak to U.S. service members here in Qatar. George.
Mary, also news this morning that a company with ties to the Chinese government is investing several $100 million in one of the Trump family's crypto businesses.
Yeah, George, that's exactly right. GD Culture.
They're so funny. Remember, every time that they say, wow, I can't believe that they accepted money from Qatar, they just mean like only Israel and Israel's allies in the region get to do that. Which, by the way, Qatar is also a part of the allegiance. They're just more neutral than the Saudis are, partially because of Al Jazeera. Qatar gave Erdogan a jet. Okay, dude, that's nothing. Qatar giving Erdogan gifts is meaningless. Qatar is basically like a holdover state in and of itself with a tremendous amount of wealth for Turkey. Accepting a plane from the people who did 9/11 is crazy. Yeah, except he didn't accept a plane from the Saudis. What the It's the Saudis that did 9/11, not Qatar. Classic American mind. Anyone but the Saudis are responsible for 9/11. All of which happens to be periphery states that Israel wants to deal with, suspiciously.
Group, a small technology company with ties to China that operates on TikTok, announcing plans to purchase up to 300 million of the Trump Bitcoin. They are just the latest business with foreign ties to jump into the president's cryptocurrency business. And all of this is coming as the president is working on a deal to allow TikTok to continue operating in the U.S. Ethics experts are sounding the alarm about conflicts of interest, but the White House insists the president is following the law.
Yeah,
George.
we've never seen a mix of personal finance and diplomacy like we're seeing on this trip and in the early months of this presidency. Mary Bruce, thanks very much.
To believe this man was once an Al-Qaeda militant with a $10 million US bounty on his head. But the man who became Syria's leader after the ouster of the dictator Bashar al-Assad is now shaking hands like old friends with Donald Trump.
How did you find the Syrian president?
Right. I think very good. Young, attractive guy, tough guy. You know, strong pass. Very strong pass fighter.
Hasan the Hunt chat effect on Drop Site News subscriber chart following Jeremy Scales' interview today. Hell yeah. They deserve it.
It was the first time in 25 years that the leaders of Syria and the US had met, and they did so at the behest of the Saudi crown prince, who'd persuaded Trump to break with US policy and lift America's crippling sanctions on Syria. Cue elation on the ground in Damascus, where the lives of ordinary Syrians have been shattered by years of civil war and American sanctions that have choked its economy for more than 4 decades.
This is a second happiness and a second liberation. The sanctions will be lifted, which means a revival is coming. No more economic crisis.
It's embarrassing to admit, but I was opposed to your support of Hamas for a long time, but after listening to your conversation with Jeremy, I realized how uneducated I was on the topic and the level of nuance it requires. Sorry for hating. I was only exposed to commentary from Asman and others. Well, I was ignorant, but I think your conversation with him will help a lot of people that are like me. Account created an hour ago. I think this is bait, especially because he said opposed to your support of Hamas. Account created an hour ago, following since an hour ago. Not to be too cynical, but the fact that he says support for Hamas. The molding is incredible. No, I mean it. They're just like, they have one mode, dude. They have one mode, immediately populate. Like, do people not realize this kind of behavior is insane? I don't get it. Do people not realize that behaving this way, when you see someone that you don't like, that you don't agree with, and your first interaction is to, one, have a bunch of like old ass videos of them that are either clipped out of context or been addressed a million times over from like a decade plus, like 12 years ago, that you've saved on your phone so you can immediately reply, you know? It's so weird. It's such a weird way to exist. I genuinely don't understand it. Like, how little do you care about yourself that you have like entire clip compilations that you have ready to rip at a moment's notice? That shit don't make no sense. Especially considering that like you're doing this, it feels like you're doing this at the behest of like another content creator that doesn't even know you exist. You know what I mean? If only I could understand the mania. Perhaps one day I will. I genuinely don't get it. I don't know. It's like Stan Twitter. It's like Stan behavior. But like neither myself nor any of these other people that you orbit are even a fraction as talented as like BTS or Blackpink. You know what I mean? Like, what the is our output that creates this level of Stan behavior? Asmin is just body odor K-pop. Yeah, but that's like, dude, like this level of dick riding for Israel, it doesn't make any sense. You know what I mean? It just doesn't, none of it makes sense to me. I don't get it. Why would you be this loyal to another country, for example? Or why would you be this loyal to a content creator that doesn't shower? Like, how is this such a major motivator? I will never understand it.
But Trump's move may throw America's relationship with Israel into crisis.
Remember when this stuff was considered cyber stalking? Now it's just everywhere. I know. That's yet another clear-cut example of the 4chanification of the internet. Shit that would be previously considered cyber stalking and like antisocial behavior is now celebrated roundly and also creates a sense of like community, a sense of shared purpose for so many people. And people are unafraid to do it in broad daylight. Indulging in recreational hatred is one of those things that looks like evidence of severe widespread delusion in the Buddhist sense. People choosing things they think will make them happy end up winding them, make them much worse. Yeah. I think about this a little bit where I'm like, is there anything that I engage with this? Like, is there anyone that I consider to be an ideological enemy that I care this much about? And I can't think of a single person that I behave this way towards. Like, I hate Bill Maher, but I'm not going to, like, here, I'll give you a great example of this. I despise Bill Maher for, I think, very good reasons. But I'm not going to be like, if someone's like, hey, I like Bill Maher, I would just be like, I don't really like that guy. And I'd move on. I wouldn't be like, in 1997, Bill Maher actually said something that I think you would find utterly unconscionable. Here's an actual long list of events that took place that are the reasons as to why you should hate Bill Maher. And even in this circumstance, like, Bill Maher's not even a good analog because, like, most of the things that my haters hate me over are not real. They are imagined. You know what I mean? It's like that copy pasta about, what's his name? The guy that died, Bob Saget. Like, in 1997, Bob killed a prostitute and then ate the body or something. Like, you know, the copy pasta I'm talking about? Like, it's basically like hating him because you believe that copy pasta. Yeah. Here, this is why I hate this random person that you are seemingly demonstrating positive feelings towards. Here is 68-second clips that will prove to you that he is an evil person. Like, that's such a weird thing to do. I don't understand what compels someone to do that. You have to apologize for Bob Essler. Yeah. Anyway, let's continue.
As it continues its military strikes in Syria, even as the US president has urged leaders on his tour of the Middle East to normalize relations with Tel Aviv. But with the war in Gaza still raging, that won't happen anytime soon.
What's been happening in Syria is you've had a lot of provocative sort of actions by Netanyahu's government, bombing randomly there, calling for sanctions, calling for designations. But that only invites a failed state, that only invites Iran and ISIS to re-emerge in Syria. President Trump decided to go the other way, to go towards a Syria that is stable, a Syria that is at peace with its neighbors, and a Syria...
Okay, for the record, I do need to... New Superman trailer, Superman versus Colonialism. Hassan, please watch. Hassan for Superman. Okay, I think the AI ads are getting they're becoming more complex. I do need to mention something. I think taking the sanctions off of Syria is good. Although I don't believe that Jelani is a good dude, and I don't believe that he has honest intentions of uplifting Syria. And I do think that he is simply a person that will allow the partitioning of different parts of Syria. North Syria goes to Turkey, South Syria goes to Israel, and a person that will maintain all the smoke for other ethnic minorities, but also simultaneously ensure that Syria never falls into the sphere of Iranian influence ever again, so that it can be used as a placeholder or a part of the supply chain for Hezbollah in Lebanon. And ultimately, I don't have a lot of good opinions about him. I still think that it is good to take off the sanctions from Syria because it's ridiculous to starve this country. It has played a horrible role in ruining the material conditions of regular Syrians at the end of the day, regardless of what their background may be. It is collective punishment. Why would he allow Iranian influence after being murdered by them? Facts. Why would he? So they can kill them? What? Dog. The person you're talking about is literally a Al-Qaeda commander. So are you trying to present Iran as the good guys in this conversation? Is that your position? Like when Iran was trying to kill him, he was literally a Al-Qaeda commander. Yeah, no shit. Yeah, they were fighting ISIS too. This isn't to say that like the Iranian government is great, especially as it pertains to its domestic affairs. But it's important to take note of, it's important to take note of who gets to survive and who gets to thrive in the region. Yeah, bourgeois compradors like Jelani do actually have, usually have intentions they deem to be honest. It's just that they're completely okay with reaching them at the cost of massive gutting of their own nation, and they're fine with butchering anyone their imperial puppeteers tell them to is absolutely correct. Like, Syria under Jelani is going to have a similar structure to Ukraine, if not significantly worse. On the one hand, we're talking about partitioning Ukraine, giving it to Russia, taking away its minerals. And the same thing is happening with Syria. Of course, Syria's conditions are so much worse than even Ukraine's conditions were that people even see that as a moment of liberation. Like, Assad was so brutal that Syrians literally were like, oh, thank God we have the Al-Qaeda commander. I do not think all of the Syrians that say, oh, thank God we have Jelani, or are critical of Jelani, but still think like it might be better overall, are that way because they're Salafists, okay? I don't think all Sunni Syrians are operating with Salafist tendencies, okay? But the conditions were so horrible for everyday Syrians that they literally are like, well, maybe the Al-Qaeda guy under the watchful gaze of America as a bourgeois comprador will be better than unlimited sanctions and a government that basically is occupying the country. Okay, I'm Syrian, and this billboard is crazy to see in Damascus. Yep. His name is Ahmed al-Shara, by the way. Okay, dude. Nah, none of that will happen. Pro-aggressive Omar, you and I have duked it out in the chat before. His name is Ahmed al-Shara, by the way. It's not Jelani. I know. For SEO purposes, his name is Ahmed al-Shara again, even though his most famous name was not Ahmed al-Shara. Okay? His most famous name was Jelani. Doing a SEO rebranding, and you're like, no. I love you, brother, but you're not very accurate on Syria. I'm sorry. Forgive me for also being from the region and recognizing that an American allegiance is still going to be ultimately an affair that does not benefit the everyday existence of the people living under American rulership. You know? I know. HTS was nearly wiped out by ISIS. They had sectarian infighting, and then they fought against one another. Dude, America, the State Department is so powerful. They could, if they wanted to, overnight, I feel like they could make Harvey Weinstein back into like a beloved figure. I swear to God. It is so crazy. There's a lot of speculation happening about the new government and accusations about murdering minorities, which is total bullshit. First of all, that wasn't total bullshit. That was real. The bullshit aspect of it, or at least the aspect of it that stretches the imagination, is whether or not it was directed by Jelani. Okay? It's not bullshit that they were dropping bombs out of planes. That part was definitely real. It's just a matter of whether or not it was actually directed or simply allowed, or a complete random group of Salafist brigades that decided to engage in sectarian ethnic cleansing campaigns. Is this guy a Syrian hog? No, he's not. He's not a Syrian hog. I assume he's just Sunni and has suffered a great deal under the Assad regime. What's wrong if he was Al-Qaeda? You can now judge Al-Qaeda, their capacity when they're in power. Wait, what? What the are we talking about? There's a lot of speculation happening about the new government and accusations about murdering. Bombs out of planes against who? I'm also Syrian, and what I don't like in your and other leftist take on this is that you're not willing to give al-Shara the same nuance and critical but fair lens you offer Islamist and anti-Israel groups. Yes, because al-Shara, okay, or formerly known as Jelani, is literally the, first of all, as a Turkish person of Muslim background, excuse me for being critical of ISIS and Al-Qaeda affiliates, okay? Whether they were a part of Al-Qaeda or ISIS, or whether they were a commander of Al-Qaeda or ISIS at any point in their careers, okay, of terrorism, yeah, it's going to hit a little different, don't you think? Because half of my commentary revolves around, unironically, explaining to dumb Westerners that no, Muslims are not like Al-Qaeda and ISIS, okay? How the what do you mean? Like, what does this take? You are making that comparison now. You're like, oh, well, you have a real critical lens on Al-Qaeda and you don't offer it grace. Sounds insane, especially as you try to package, but in a progressive way, I guess, Al-Qaeda and Hamas or Palestinian Islamic Jihad. Being Al-Qaeda in Syria is different than being Al-Qaeda on Turkey. Let's be real. No, being Al-Qaeda in Syria is the same as being Al-Qaeda everywhere. What the f are you talking about? I don't even agree with the Turkish involvement in Syria either. The f comparing national emancipatory movements that have literally never operated outside of occupied historic Palestinian territory to groups that are literally vagabonds and psychopathic, bloodthirsty monsters that go all around the region to behead and engage in sectarian ethnic cleansing is psychotic. Okay? That is insane. What the is going on? What is happening? It's the same shit with even the Houthis. A lot of people love talking about Hezbollah and criticize it aggressively for its actions in Syria in cooperation with the Assad regime. Why is that a big deal? It's a big deal despite who the Hezbollah militancy was fighting against, which is usually Salafist brigades and ISIS and Al-Qaeda. The reason why it's a big deal is because Hezbollah is supposed to also be a national emancipatory movement, but they extended their reach outside of the borders of Lebanon. That was a major point of contention for a lot of Sunni Muslims in the area. There's a big difference between being a national emancipatory movement that is dedicated to fighting against Western imperialism and a group that just goes wherever suspiciously America's interests are represented perfectly. I saw someone on Twitter claim it's problematic to call the Uyghur foreign fighters in Syria Islamists. They are the most Islamists. What the they are? They literally, what are you talking about? All of the groups that the Turkish military trained, all the NATO trained groups are straight up, they are like what you would consider to be jihadis, okay? That's what it is. When people say these guys are jihadis, they're talking about Al-Qaeda. They're talking about ISIS. They're talking about the that are under the Turkish banner. What the hell? Anyway, I do think, why do some leftists feel the need to have the hottest take possible? No. The hot take that actually comes from the leftist side in this is to offer firm and unconditional support to Assad, to make it seem like any kind of like Baathist in the region is actually a base secular, a fantastic leader that is dedicated to fighting till the very end against American empire. That's what the base leftists actually, the hot take that leftists have. All the other takes, unless they're directly Syrian, okay, all the other takes are usually liberals who don't understand. Like they misappropriate nuance where there is no nuance necessary, and ironically in the process end up leveling all of the Islamist militancies as the same when they are directly in conflict with one another. Okay? Where's Assad right now? Probably being an optometrist in Moscow. I don't know. Meanwhile, while this is happening, in the backdrop, this very same friendly former ISIS leader is allowing Israel to bomb every part of Syria that they choose to, and also illegally occupy further into Syrian territory, establishing military positions inside of Syria. And also simultaneously allowing the very same to happen with the not permanent annexation or real annexation, but like a de facto annexation of northern Syria for Turkey. Al-Shah only joined Al-Qaeda to fight American invaders in Iraq. No, that's the meta that he has represented. You are whitewashing what he did. He then disavowed and then left them and even fought them and cooperated with coalition forces to kill them. His faction ended up building a parallel Syrian state in Idlib and is currently being involved in rebuilding Syria. Clearly not the bloodthirsty vagabond you make him out to be. Bro, you're not talking about a misunderstood. You're referencing a guy who was a Al-Qaeda commander as a simple misunderstood figure that was actually anti-imperialist. This is technically not that different. Not even technically. This is quite literally actually saying Osama bin Laden was an anti-imperialist hero, okay? Like it's not even technically. It's actually even worse now because at least the Twin Towers are in America. This was killing other Arabs. in totally separate areas, by the way. He's like, yeah, I wanted to fight against American empire so hard, I just ended up killing as many other Arabs as I possibly could. What kind of argument is this? And for the record, I don't agree with Osama bin Laden either, okay? Make no fucking mistake. I'm trying to explain how insane it is to make it seem like this is an understandable position. All of my dad's land in northern Syria is currently occupied by Turkish troops. What you were saying is correct. Yes. Okay. So Turkey's ambitions in the northern Syrian corridor, as a matter of national security, is to basically create muhtars, which is like a more rural governorship structure that exists in Turkey, that are either Turkish aligned, Turkish adjacent, directly Turkish, or speaks Turkish fluently. So what they are going to do is create regional managers that are still associated with the Turkish government and repopulate. Yeah, no, it's okay. He was only Al-Qaeda in Iraq. I just believed in him, in giving him a chance as a changed, less radicalized militiaman that ended up becoming the president of Syria. Now, whether you like it or not, dude, he did not become a less radicalized militiaman that ended up becoming the Syrian president. He was afforded that position. He was given that position by Western aligned and American forces. Okay? What the yeah, we should have just made we should have just made bin Laden the leader of Syria, I guess, you know? The take that he was only Al-Qaeda in Iraq is complete bullshit. You literally opened up the Syrian branch of Al-Qaeda called Al-Qaeda in Syria, the Al-Nusra Front. It was then rebranded to just Al-Nusra Front and then rebranded like 5 times later. And there was also sectarian infighting within Al-Nusra Front and other Salafist brigades as well. This doesn't mean that they were, you know, not also uniquely evil in the jihadi sense that Americans always think about when they think about all Muslims. Holy true, absolutely true. Now that he's here, what would you rather the U.S. and international community do? Also, there's literally no proof he was involved in any anti-civilian attacks in Iraq. Yeah, brother. Charles Manson also has no, proof that he actually killed people. It wasn't him that directly killed people. Dude, he was the commander of Al-Qaeda. What are you saying? What is going on right now? What is happening? Hassan's so sad since the fall of Assad. Was there ever a point, bro, you on here trying to convince brainwashed socialists? I love that you also have to immediately resort to, oh, you must be pro-Assad. Like, yeah, no. Try to adopt the position that I do not hold in an effort to justify your argument. Nice, dude. Why is Turkey supporting Pakistan against India? What's the ulterior motive? Turkey does what Turkey wants to do, okay? Don't question the Turkish government. Except when I do question the Turkish government in Syria, a lot of American NatSec chatters get mad at me. Didn't you support the Armenian genocide? Says this chatter. I don't know where you got this from. Probably that you fantasized it. Funny joke.
That's free of Iran, China, Russia, ISIS, etc.
Honest question, other than Hamas, what groups are not terrible / killing people for no reason that the U.S. labels as terrorists in your opinion? First of all, let's dispel this notion that people kill people for no reason, okay? Serial killers are people who kill people for no reason. Terrorist groups don't kill people for no reason. They kill people for bad reasons, but there's still a reason, okay? Just like America kills people, not for no reason, but for bad reason. But there's still a reason, okay? And I'm sure even serial killers have some reason as well. Bruh, take. No, it's true. What do you mean? It's not like ISIS doesn't kill people for no reason. They kill people for a reason. It's just a horrifying reason, and I don't agree with it. I don't agree with the act of killing, and I don't agree with the reasoning behind it. But to say that there's no logical through line here is so stupid. No one is learning anything from you explaining with chat arguments. Okay. Stretch. Okay. Sometimes terror groups kill civilians for, like I said, sectarian purposes. Other times they do it to create an environment of terror. Other times they do it for political purpose. Other times they do it as collateral damage in the process of killing military members. It depends. Anyway, let's continue with this.
Then it was on to Qatar, another Middle Eastern state dripping with oil and riches, and today a caravan of camels, a place that Trump 2.0 can't help but be drawn to. But it hasn't always been that way.
The nation of Qatar, unfortunately, has historically been a funder of terrorism at a very high level. We have to stop the funding of terrorism.
And yet here he was, sitting side by side with Qatar's leader, making nice.
But we've been friends for a long time, and this is an outstanding man.
But the
Bro, you are so fake, Trump. You fake piece of shit. You fake, phony piece of shit. Oh, we've been friends for a very long time. I loved when they were, what, funding terror by your own estimation? That's crazy.
Meeting was less about foreign policy and more about business deals, as Trump announced Qatar would buy $200 billion worth of Boeing planes, though the White House said it was half that amount.
It's the largest order of jets in the history of Boeing. That's pretty good.
But there was only one jumbo jet story in town, the gifting of a $400 million luxury plane from Qatar that Trump insists he'd be a fool not to accept. They didn't mention that, but back home in D.C., Democrats and even some Republicans warn the gift will compromise national security.
And I hope there are some serious people within the administration who take our national security seriously who will tell Trump he can't do this. But it's outrageous.
I don't know that if we can have an honest appraisal of their human rights record and decisions on arms sales if we're receiving $400 million gifts from a country, so I'm not for it.
But Trump just can't.
I like that when Israel says jump, our politicians say how high. Like, by the end of this Middle Eastern tour, I feel like they're going to be like Qatar did October 7th. Like, we must nuke Qatar. We must nuke Doha immediately. They were directly responsible. They did October 7th. They were there. The royals were there. I saw them. They were beheading babies and throwing them in ovens.
Resist. How could he? Not when they're rolling out the full pomp of a state banquet in his honor. What's the harm of a palatial jumbo jet between friends?
Yeah, 100 mil from Miriam Adelson is not bribery. That's something different. 400 million from the Qatars in the form of a jumbo jet. That, on the other hand, that's the highest form of bribery. It's like, it's all bribery, dumbass. The f are you talking about?
Where's the plane? And they are having difficulty. I'm not happy with Boeing, but we're going to work on Boeing. And Boeing's got some unbelievable people working for it, so I'm not going to do anything bad to Boeing. But they had a strong contract. I wrote the contract. It was a guaranteed price contract. And if I wanted to, I could, hurt Boeing, and I don't want to hurt Boeing. But they are very...
No, one's lobbying is different. It's not even... By the way, the funniest part about this is that Israel doesn't even get hit with a foreign agent registration. So it calculates totally differently. Its lobbying efforts are seen as domestic lobbying efforts. That's the other part of this. That's why they can always get away with saying, like, well, Qatar is actually the largest funder of our universities or whatever. It's like, yeah, dude, because when Israeli aligned interest groups are also funding a ton of initiatives in this country, it's not seen as a foreign entity doing the influence peddling. It's seen as a domestic effort to do influence peddling. That's it. That's the real secret there, for the record. And so much so that if you actually even dare to question this, people can just be like, wow, anti-Semitism much? I can't believe it. I can't believe it. How dare you say Chuck Schumer, who has spoken at every AIPAC conference and has said things such as, obviously Judea and Samaria belongs to Israel, and these the enemies of Israel just simply don't want to understand the truth that was written in the Bible, that this nation belongs to Jews from 3,000 years ago. When he says stuff like that, no one turns around and goes, what are you, a mullah, but like a Jewish? Like, what's happening here? Like, this is we only are tuned into a certain frequency where it's like, if I hear a guy with a big beard and a turban on his head saying stuff like that in Arabic or in Farsi, only then can I recognize how insane of a statement that is. God forbid you point to that and go, what the is this? What are you? Are you a registered foreign agent? Why are you doing this? Everyone goes, wow, look how Look how unimaginably anti-Semitic you are. I see why people take special notice of this bribe, though, because Israeli influence is a lot more institutional and official. No, the reason why people are taking special notice of this bribe and not the bribes of, I don't know, building a Trump Tower in Damascus or any number of different moments where Saudi Arabia has straight up pumped billions of dollars to Jared Kushner and Donald Trump. The reason why those things, while they still get a little bit of media coverage, are usually in the backdrop is because these countries, as they stand currently, are not a threat to Israel. Okay? That's why. Because these countries are a part of the Abraham Accords. These countries actually want to normalize relations with Israel. And the very moment that you say, okay, I'm normalizing relations with Israel, Israel can do no wrong, then it's over. It's not a problem anymore. Qatar, on the other hand, which also wants to collaborate with Israel, obviously, as a regional actor, is still somewhat neutral to the Palestinians. Remember, I'm not saying they're pro-Palestine. I'm not saying that they care about the safety and security of Palestinians at all, but they're neutral. And that is the reason why everyone freaks the out about Qatar doing this, okay? It's the same reason as to why people freak the out about Turkey and Israel being at odds in Syria. If you recall, right before Benjamin Netanyahu came to Washington, D.C., there was already like some conflict brewing in Syria because they had already partitioned Syria, and Erdogan had some different initiatives for Syria than Israel had for Syria. They had different designs for it, even though both of these parties, while still have like regional, they have some semblance of autonomy and have their own regional interests. Both of these parties are still operating at the behest of U.S. empire. Okay, so when that happens, then obviously people start talking about, whoa, wait a minute, like you got to dial this back a little bit. Israel literally bombed an airport that had Turkish engineers in it in Syria. It became a major problem. Then they quickly wrapped it up, and we're like, all right, it's fine. And once America got the Kurdish militias to stand down, okay, once again, the ever-present pro-Kurdish in the United States of America, once again wrote them off, okay, and is trying to find a way to basically bring the Kurdish militias under the banner of HTS or the current Syrian government in a way that doesn't like offend Turkey's interest in the region, because their grand design revolves around just eliminating the threat of Syria being a logistical hub for Hezbollah between Iran and Hezbollah. Once they're done with that threat, it's over. It's no longer a problem. You can partition the country whichever way you want to other regional actors because nobody gives a shit about Syrian people. Anyway, once that took place and Israel couldn't use Kurds as a ethnic group that they could sometimes launch against Turks if they felt the need to do so, they started talking about the Druze population. Bro's crying again? What? Some of you are unfortunately too stupid to understand political commentary or even human emotion. I am not crying. I'm just describing the events that have unfolded in Syria since the HTS takeover, but you have no way of reading anything outside of the lens of drama. So you come in here and you go, oh, you must be crying. You're crying again. God damn. Anyway, so now the point of contention in Syria is over the Druze population. That's what Israel is using. Okay?
Late with the plane, and Qatar heard about it, and he's a great leader. And we were talking, and he said, if I can help you, let me do that. And they had a plane, not a new plane at all, but they had a plane. And you know, these planes, the plane that you're on right now is almost 40 years old. And when you land and you see Saudi Arabia and you see UAE and you see Qatar and you see all these, and they have these brand new Boeing 747s mostly, and you see ours next to it. This is like a totally different plane. It's much smaller, it's much less impressive as it is. And you know, we're the United States of America. I believe that we should have the most.
Your assessment is very true. Israel loved Kurds because we were useful to them for a while. Now they're using the Druze the same way. Shaking my head. Yes. Hijri, a Druze Syrian sheikh, is pro-Israel and calls for Israeli intervention in Syria. Anyone in the region that is pro-Israel or pro-America is, I mean, that's what it is. They're pro-Israel and pro-America. They are begging to be a outward asset for imperial endeavors. That kind of attitude will inevitably create a incredibly, oftentimes fundamentalist reaction. But of course, that doesn't matter. That's a problem for the next decade or so.
Most impressive plane. So anyway, so they said to me, we would like to, in effect, we would like to make a gift. You've done so many things, and we'd like to make a gift to the Defense Department, which is where it's going. And I said, well, that's nice. Now, some people say, oh, you shouldn't accept gifts for the country. My attitude is, why wouldn't I accept a gift? We're giving to everybody else. Why wouldn't I accept a gift? Because it's going to be a couple of years, I think, before the Boeings are finished. And they'll be wonderful when they're finished, but that's a long time.
Part of your argument how the United States has paid untold billions and trillions of dollars.
I didn't even realize Hanny was there.
Securing every aspect of the world.
Well, I said that. I said, you know, we've secured that part of the world for many years. So if somebody makes a gift, then I'm not getting, I get nothing. I get to fly it like any other president would. Ultimately, it'll be at the end of its lifetime or at the end of the term, because we're going to have the other ones in by that time.
So the U.S. is kind of giving them gifts. It's called national defense.
Yeah. No, security. Well, we give a lot of gifts. We give too many gifts, to be honest with you. We give gifts to defend countries. They wouldn't even exist. Many countries wouldn't even exist. All over the world, countries wouldn't even exist. But I thought it was a beautiful gesture. Now, there are those that say we shouldn't be accepting gifts to the Defense Department. And I would say only a stupid person would say that. Why wouldn't we do that? And so it helps us out because we'll have a relatively new plane instead of having 40-year-old planes. These planes are 40 years old, and that's not representative of our country.
Let me go to the other side, and that's the national security equation. And I know every one of these countries that we will be stopping at here and we'll be reporting on this show, every one of them is worried about one country, and that is Iran. #1 state sponsor of terror. And obviously the Iranians, you've been very, very clear. They can't get a nuke.
Right.
They can't enrich. According to published reports, they could be 3 to 6 months away from being a nuclear power.
There won't be a nuclear power. Let me just explain. I'm all for Iran. I want them to have a wonderful country and make a lot of money. They have great oil reserves. But if you remember, when I was president, Iran was broke because I placed secondary sanctions, meaning you couldn't buy, if you bought oil, you couldn't deal with the United States. And people make a lot of money dealing with the United States. So basically, they weren't selling any oil to almost anybody. It was down to a trickle, almost nothing. And by the time it all came about after a couple of years.
Is it the Air Force One has 40-year-old parts? No, he's not wrong. Yes. A lot of planes are old. A lot of planes that you actually fly in are old, and their parts are old too. Some of their parts are. He just doesn't. I don't think he likes the aesthetic of Air Force One. That's what it is. That's simply all this is.
They were essentially, they had no money, and they didn't have money for Hamas. They didn't have money for Hezbollah. They didn't have any money at all, and we had no threat. And when Biden came in, he took off the sanctions and he let them get very rich. And now they have $350 billion or more, which is a tremendous amount. They made great wealth. With oil, you make great money quick, great money, great wealth quickly. And they have tremendous oil and tremendous reserves.
By the way, nothing that Trump is doing in the region is America first. And ironically, it's Trump first, okay? It's Trump first and Trump's family and friends first, which is what makes this situation really hilarious, because for a lot of Trump morons, like a lot of MAGA supporters, they literally just think Trump is America and America is Trump. So when Trump does stuff that's like very openly self-serving, they go, hell yeah, brother, that's America first, baby. That's it. That's the whole point here. The entire point here is Trump first, America first. That's what this is.
And Biden freed.
Is there peasants? Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Them up from what I did.
And coming up, Louisiana Senator, our favorite senator, John Kennedy, will join us with reaction.
They're still talking about the Qatar controversy. That's crazy. Hasan Reactions, one of the best ones in the React channel.